Hello, everyone. This is Betsy Wurzel, your host of Chatting with Betsy on Passionate World Talk Radio, where our mantra is to educate, enlighten, and entertain. The views of the guest may not represent those of the station or the host. Thank you for joining me today. I have a special guest on, and all my guests are special. My guest today is Michael Levy. He is from Florida, but originally from England. He is author and writer of 17 books, a poet, a philosopher, freelance writer, talk show host, a business, health, and wellness consultant, an inspirational speaker, and international speaker. And I am excited. Michael contacted me through LinkedIn, and we met that way. And I'm excited to have Michael Levy on my show. Welcome, Michael, to Chatting with Betsy.
Hello, Betsy. How are you?
I am doing great. It's so nice to talk to you, and thank you for connecting with me.
Oh, it's a pleasure. There's always a reason, and the universe works in connecting people to people.
You know what? I still believe that, Michael. I believe that every person we meet is for a reason, to teach us something, and I'll tell you, I have learned so much from every guest that comes to my show. I'm blessed and grateful to do what I do.
Yeah, well, this is the way we pass messages on to each other. If you hear some background noise, I'm in a condo, and there might be workmen working anywhere in the building. So it's good that there might be that noise, because people get distracted when they hear noise. And in life, if things are going on and you need to do something, you've got to be observant, and you've got to be aware of what you're doing and not get distracted by all the chaos that is going on around us 24/7, 365 in this world we live in today. So if there's noises in the background, then you accept it, but you still get on with what you're doing. So that's why that noise came about just now. There's some kind of...
Oh, okay. As long as it wasn't my phone.
No.
That's fine. We can't control noises. Sometimes my landscaping guys come when I'm doing an interview and they mow the lawn. So, I mean, things can't be helped. And sometimes my connection drops. So, and then I have to start all over. But, you know, we just hope for the best. You know what, Michael? You brought out a good point, awareness. People today, I don't think there is aware. Like, I mean, I'm 65, and I'll be honest. I'm more self-aware of myself now, my feelings, validating them, than I ever was when I was younger.
Well, that's because you've had time to reflect and gain the wisdom you were born with. You see, when we're born, we're all born with wisdom, intelligence, and truth. However, we start to, very early on, watch our parents, and then as we start to mature, we gain an education, we have friends, and all the time, that wisdom, that intelligence, and that truth diminishes, and it's replaced with an intellect. And the intellect also has an identity, an ego. And when a person gets to about 7 years of age, more or less they've cemented the identity of who they're going to be throughout their life. Now, some people will never change. They're going to be like that, and they'll suffer the consequences no matter what. Whether it be overeating, drinking the wrong drinks, eating the wrong foods, smoking, and other habits which are physical. And then you've got the mindset, where absorbing thought, and people live with negative thoughts needlessly. And they live with negative emotions totally needlessly, because none are real. All are illusionary, attached to this identity that we've become to deem as ourselves. But we're not that. We're far greater than that. And as you were aging, you started to realize something wasn't right earlier on, and now as I age, why did I do this, why did I do that? You reflect on things, and your awareness becomes stronger. And your wisdom, Betsy, begins to take shape that it was when you were born. You're at the age now, well, some people start earlier, But a lot of people start around about the 60s. They start thinking, well, I've got a lengthening past and a shortening future. How can I make the future on Earth as good as it can get? In other words, how can I get full value out of my life? And that's why I wrote my books.
Yeah, absolutely, Michael. I'll tell you what, and I know like my audience has heard this, but I am so grateful. People could say, Betsy, how can you be grateful that your husband had Alzheimer's and died? Well, I'm not grateful that he got that, but I'm grateful for what I learned from that and how it changed my life for the better. I mean, I stepped into I call it my power, the age of 60, because of meeting people through the show, through other people, taking courses, improving myself. It's just, a huge blessing, and I had to thank Matt for that, because really I never would have gotten discovered by Jeannie White, station manager, if I didn't get in my car to start raising awareness on early onset Alzheimer's. So it's really amazing.
Well, you had all your years together. How long were you married?
Hello?
Hello, yes.
Yes, that was like I didn't know if I dropped or if you dropped.
I asked you how long were you married?
I was married 39 years.
Right, so you had beautiful 39 years, and when he passed over, it was him telling you, don't be sad, don't grieve for me, just become the person you need to be now and enjoy the rest of your life. That's the message he left you with, and you became aware of that.
Yes. Oh, Michael, you are so spot on. I mean, people might think I'm a little woo here, but I believe in signs, and Matt did send me signs, and yes, definitely, I believe this is where I'm supposed to be, what I'm supposed to be doing, and it's because of Matt's journey definitely led me to where I am and to where I could help people, because that's my mission. And I told Matt when he was dying, I promised him that I would continue on. And I encouraged him to go. I said, you fought the good fight. Now it's time for you to go to your heavenly home. We'll be okay.
Right. Well, love never dies. He's with you now while you're speaking. That essence of love follows from generation to generation, and from all our ancestors too. Remember, all our ancestors, if any of them had taken the wrong turn, then we won't be here today. So you go back thousands of years, and we don't know who all those ancestors were. It's impossible to find out. From the beginning of time, in fact, if you want to go back even further than that, you can go back to what scientists would call a Big Bang or creation, before Earth was even developed. And we've come a long way. And like you said, there's a lot to be grateful for and to be blessed to have these few moments on Earth. And that's all we've got. We've got a few moments on Earth. If we live to be 100 years of age, it's not even a blink in cosmic terms. And people waste so much of it, moaning and groaning or thinking of this or thinking of that, delving into politics where they've got no way of changing it, talking about this, miserable about the weather. There's so many things that take people's attention away from the miracle of who we are. Just doing this now, having a conversation. Just think what's going on. And your listeners too. There's a vibration coming from inside me. And that vibration is turning into some form of a language. We're interpreting that language as an English language or American language, and we're interpreting the meaning of it. The miraculousness of just understanding that one thing. Once you start to expand on that miraculous and see how your body is functioning, trillions of atoms and molecules, billions of cells, all interacting with each other, a universe within a universe, and each one of us is part of that universal flow of energy. And that energy is with us before we were born. It comes into the body when we were born, and it leaves and it departs when everything else is gone. So all the thoughts and all the rest of stuff that we live here all disappears. Yet it's recorded in the universe by the electronic impulses in our brain. Because every thought and every suggestion, everything that we have, is an electronic impulse. And energy can never disappear. It's got to go somewhere. And the universe is infinite, so it's floating around there. Everything that anybody spoke, whether it be Jesus, Moses, Muhammad, whether it be Socrates, Plato, Aristotle, all that stuff is still floating around the universe. And we can pick up and tune into those thoughts, or you can get fresh creative thoughts, depending which channel our brains are switched on to. And once we start to expand our brain, then that means more channels are aware and we've got. So when I grew up in England, there was BBC. And in fact, we never even had a television until I was 13. We never had a phone in the house ever until I was 19, living in the corner row house in what people would call a slum area. But for me, that was the joy de vivre. I was born and I was skipping through life in a joyful state of mind. So that's never ever changed. I've always philosophized in a way, but I was a businessman. And when I came over to America, that transposed after 6 years of looking up to the universe and asking questions. None of my books have ever come from any other philosopher or any knowledge of what you call the educational system, academic stuff. It came flowing through. Well, of course, I went to school and left school at 16, so I've had some form of education so I can understand it. But it's transposed into my own form of language. And those books are for prosperity, because I never advertise and I never use PR. If nobody ever read them, it wouldn't mean any difference to me, because there's nothing to prove. Everything in them works in a practical philosophy for everyday life, for every human being on the planet. And if they see it and they want to read it, fine. If they think their intellectual knowledge is far greater and they don't want to do that, also fine.
I think people are looking for answers now more than ever, Michael, because the world is in turmoil, a crisis. And I know that I was negative for most of my life, and you're never too old to change, folks, and I started to think positive and be positive, and positive things have happened. And I also believe that we need to surround ourselves with people who would be supportive of us, and we support them in being positive and not this toxic, complaining all the time, because it just brings you down.
What I found, basically, I've been writing now for about, I would say, it must be about 24 years now. Like I said, it took 6 years before I write one word down, because I didn't come from that background, and I didn't really want to do it. But the writing's found me, and it's never ever been an effort to write any words or any poetry down. It flows through me like you turn a tap on. So it's never been that form of an effort to put that down into a book form. But what I found over this period of time, that people, when I first started writing, I used to put one of the very early blogs. It was a Yahoo group, basically, and I used to write the Point of Life Global Spirit. I had about maybe 3,000 people at that time that used to read it. It's helped a lot of pastors. One became very, very famous, world famous, who was reading my stuff, and he used quite a bit of it in his own sermons. And a lot of, even professors have used them. But what I found basically is, over that period of time, people are looking for more change and want to get out stuff, but they're not willing to take the effort to change themselves in real form. Because my books really take effort to change, because I challenge the reader. Now, if someone's going to buy a book and they're going to read what they already know about spirituality, about self-help, and all the other stuff that's out there, they've been to seminars, well, they're rechurning the same stuff up over and over again. It's not going to help them one iota, because they're still going to be stuck when things go on in their life and the chaos hits them. Think, why is this happening to me? I know this, I know that. I'm a good person. I'm spiritually aware of everything that's going on around me. Yeah, I'm still suffering all this. I've gained this illness. Why did I gain this? Well, every effect has a cause. And once we understand the cause, then we can change the effects. But what I found is people do not like to challenge what they know or what they believe. Once a belief is set in, there's 3 little letters in the word belief, L-I-E. And every belief system, to some form, will be telling lies to that person because it's not truth. Truth is a different entity. Now, what kind of truths are they? Well, on Earth, there's relative truths. And a relative truth would be, we're human beings, we need oxygen to breathe. We need water to live. Our body functions with 70% water inside us. So those are basic relative truths on planet Earth. Another planet somewhere else in the universe, if there's life on it, might have a totally different ball game, different rules. And they might not need oxygen, they might not need water, totally different species. But that's a relative truth. But when it comes to absolute truth, the human brain can't take that in. That's why I wrote a book called Cutting Truths. Because every cell in our body can only work off authentic truths. The relative truths are outside us in our conscious brain. But authentic truth, absolute truth, is the way our heart beats, the way the cells connect, the way the neurons in the gut connect to the central nervous system and to our immune system and connect to our brain, and the conversations that is going on between all those cells all the time we're on Earth, 24/7, 365. There's massive communications going on throughout our body. But are most people aware of that? No. They'd rather talk about who's going to go in politics or what's going on in this place or that place. I mean, it's good to take an interest in what's going on around us. It's okay to have concern about things, but worry solves absolutely zero. Nobody ever solved one thing through worry. It's never changed one thing in the whole of the time anybody's been on Earth. But to have concern, to have compassion, to help people who are in need. And like you said, when your husband died, you could have moped and groaned and poor me and poor me syndrome and had a pity party. But no, you decided to make yourself open to the public and give your wisdom to people and put on shows like this, which shows the universe is connected to you, God is connected to you, and you're flowing, that energy is flowing through you.
Yes, that's so true, Michael. And I run a support group and for caregivers, and even, in the group, I tell people, to me, it was a mindset to make it through Matt's journey with Alzheimer's. I couldn't let it defeat me. I have a life to live, and I was just wrote this in a comment to someone. The best way, in my opinion, that we could honor our loved one's life is to keep on enjoying living and honor their memory. Our loved ones don't want us to sit around moping and crying. Yes, we're sad, and yes, there were moments where I tear up and I miss Matt. Holidays, and the grief gets you. But most of the time, I have such a new appreciation for life, and I want to help as many people as possible. And I was given an opportunity to do that. And, just to sit and mope around, that would be really easy, but it wouldn't benefit me or anyone else. And I just believe in, what? Matt wouldn't want me to do that. I promised. I made him a promise, and I'm going to keep it, and it's what I want to do. And, I really believe people have to have a mindset that, you can survive and thrive in caregiving. And, I've interviewed people on this show who have had terrible tragedies in their life, and they made it through the other side, and they became victorious because they chose to do that.
Well, that's the wonder of how we human beings connect. Most human beings really are kind. We are kind beings. That's why it's called humankind. So we are kind beings within ourselves, but we get kind of confused sometimes. We get on different thought tracks. And another question I would ask people who are listening in is, do you control your thoughts, or do your thoughts control you? Now, when I give a lecture to people and I ask a room full of people, I say, put your hand up if you think you control your own thoughts. And most of the room put their hands up. And then I say, how many people here worry? And the same people put their hands up. So I say, well, if you're controlling your thoughts, why are you worrying? Do you love worrying? Do you love being in some form of negative mindset? Is that what you're choosing? So if you are choosing that, the question next would be, why are you choosing it? Or have you been waylaid at the crossroads and are these negative thought processes coming into your mind and you're not controlling them? They're just flowing in and out every morning. Every morning maybe you've got a habit. You switch the television on, you're addicted to news. A lot of people today have got cell phones. And all the time they're messing around with their cell phones. The attention is being taken up. Now, I've got a cell phone. It's never switched on. When I go outside, it's in the car for an emergency only. And if I use my phone maybe 3 times a year, that's about as much as I'd use it. Because I've never had a need for it. Good or bad news will keep till I get home. And I'm still on a regular home phone, so we're on a land phone. And I've got a computer that I would go on some parts of the day to maybe on my Twitter, people that follow me. I've got, I think, 260,000 people follow me on Twitter and on the LinkedIn. So I just put maybe a quote out there. On the LinkedIn, I might put an article out there or an essay or a poem. And just send a message out to people that there's no need for you to keep on as you are at this moment in time. Start to be really kind to yourself. Step back and start to become the witness rather than the participant on what is going on in your life at this moment in time. Whatever it is, good, bad or indifferent. Whether you're celebrating a nice event, whether somebody's passed, whether you've got an illness, just step back for one moment or two. Just rise above it and look down on yourself. And see yourself of that person who's doing all that suffering, all the anguish, all the stuff that's going on inside. And start to take some deep breaths. And start to relax. And while I'm talking now, I'm going to recite a poem to you, which I wasn't going to do. It's just coming to my head. But
sure.
I've got a book. There's 5 poems in this book at the end of the book, which is called Well, Well, Well. And let me see which one of these 5 poems is meant to be read on this is the one that's going to be read on this show. And like I said, nothing's planned with me. I'm just talking about this. We're having a conversation as I would have a conversation with anybody. I've just come off a cruise last week, and I talk to people like this all the time. So it's not something to rehearse. It's my life. I talk like this every time I'm speaking to people. So, like I said, you take a few deep breaths in, nice deep breaths in through your mind and through your nose, and let it flow out through your mouth. Relax, uncross your legs if you've got your legs crossed. Remember you're the witness to your life, you're not the participant. And now you're looking down on yourself, and you're slowly going to do this nice breathing, nice rhythmic breathing, and we're going to drift now into the blissful silence. In the silence of my thought-free mind, I leave the pettiness of condition behind. I feel the exaltation of God's kiss. I truly am in a wondrous, divine bliss. In my peaceful harmony I immerse, floating, weightless, throughout the universe. I feel the comfort of a glowing ember in a timeless world, an ecstasy to remember. One-on-one, God as God in a field of gold, an endless flowing stream, never feeling old, worth more than all the treasures can bestow. I rise up in an everlasting, eternal glow. In this state of mind, beauty is all I find. This is the cosmos gift for all humankind. It's time to light the sacred torch. Don't be frightened. In silent meditation, you will be enlightened.
That's beautiful, Michael. Thank you. That's just inspired me. Just sent chills up. I'm here in New Jersey. I just got goosebumps from that. And that's from your book, Well, which is available on Amazon.
Yeah, well. Eat well, think well, live well. And my wife wrote the first 82 pages of it. That's on nutrition and food and the good, the bad, and the ugly types of food, what they do to us. And it's done in bullet points. And that 80-odd pages could have been put in a 500-page book, but I've just made it specific bullet points. And remember this, I put little typos in throughout the book. I've always put typos in all my books. And the reason why I do that is we have an intellectual brain. And if we see a typo, it suddenly stops us in our tracks. Think this person doesn't know what he's talking about. Well, if the meaning in the book isn't strong enough to capture the reader, then they're not meant to read that book anyway, because it's not going to do an April for good for them. The mind's too educated. So you can either be too ignorant or you can be too educated. You've got to be in the middle. On one side of the seesaw is ignorance. On the other side is high education. And the seesaw is going up and down all the time. But in the middle of the seesaw is a hub. And if we live in the middle of the seesaw, we're not going up and down all the time. We're constant. We're balanced. And we understand that the chaos that's going up and down on all around us, it can't affect us. And if you notice when I was reciting that poem, that drill came on. At the appropriate moment, halfway through, the drill came on, and it tried to distract us. And I found that's happened to me in a zillion cases. All the time, something comes along of a negative nature to try and deter us and put us on a different track. And you'll find that happens to you. In your life, you just get these nice thoughts, you're just feeling nice and comfortable within yourself, and all of a sudden, something comes along, and you get knocked off your feet again. But if you've got your inner core balanced, it can't knock you off your feet anymore, because you become bubble-wrapped. You become bubble-wrapped in a divine bliss. And we live in a state of love and joy 24/7, 365, throughout our whole lives. Nothing can ever take that away. It's eternal. It's infinite in nature. And like I said earlier, we were there before we were born. We've got it while we're here on earth. Whether you're aware of it or not, you've got it. Every blade of glass has got it. Every tree's got it. Every bird's got it. The oceans have got it. Every insect's got it. Every butterfly's got it. Every animal's got it. But we human beings, we've got an intellect too. And sometimes it's very good to have this intellect, but other times it becomes a curse. We cut the truth out of our lives, and we replace it with all the other stuff that's going on. And because we do that, we're distracted all the time. We keep feeling good, and it doesn't last long. So eventually, people get frightened to be joyful, because they think, as soon as I get joyful, I'm going to get knocked off my feet. I'm going to be miserable again. So I might as well stay miserable. Then I won't be disappointed.
That's, you know what, I've listened to a lot of people, inspirational speakers, and I heard someone say, you know, if you look for what bad thing is going to come next, something bad will happen. But, you have to think to yourself, well, what good thing is going to happen? What great adventure is around the corner? And I started to think that because I was pessimistic most of my life until my age 60. I'm 65 now. And just the change in me in the past 5 years and continual change for the better, very grateful. I guess that I had on, she started a launch group of coaching, and I'm in it, and I learned so much. And it was meant for me to learn this. So, we never stop learning. You're never too old. You have to keep learning and evolving yourself for the better.
Well, the way to look at it basically is with the ups and downs in life. Like you said, if you think the right positive thoughts, then good things will happen. But the bad things will still come along anyway, or even whether you're thinking it or not. You can't change what is going to go on in the circumstances you have no control over. Nobody can do that. You can only control what is going in through your head and the thoughts that are floating through on it, and what effect those thoughts are going to have to you. So if you take away the dualistic nature of good and bad, which a lot of Vedic and Eastern philosophies cater to, and you understand there's no such thing as good and bad. There's just events that happen. And like Voltaire said, you treat every praise and insult as the same imposter. So somebody says something good to you, oh, nice, thank you very much. Someone says something bad to you, oh, nice, thank you very much. And when I was a kid growing up, and back in Manchester, I was what you call happy-go-lucky. And when you got a big smile on your face, there's these big bullies that want to knock it off all the time. They try and beat you up, or they try and say things to you. Well, you could say, I was always been called stupid as a kid, and still am now today by some of the media. So when I'm called stupid, I used to agree with them. I say, yeah, I do stupid stuff, you're right. And I used to laugh and joke with them. Well, they'd run away, think this guy's totally cracked. So so I've got 2 essays in a book called Cutting Truths, and it's the art of stupidity. Because once you understand we're all stupid and we all do stupid stuff, then you can make it work in your favor. And it's phenomenal what it does for you. It actually takes your ego way, way down. It looks at your intellect in a totally different light. And it starts to readdress the process. So the ego now becomes the backseat passenger rather than the front seat driver. And it's not driving full force, trying to crash us into ill health, give us bad habits, or keep us on that path of what we were before. It starts to make itself saying, why didn't I do this before? I didn't realize life could be so easy. I always thought life was a challenge. I always thought I had to challenge myself to do things. You see, one thing I've never done in my life is ever use the word work. Yeah, I retired at 46 years of age from the business world, wealthy, and I started at 19 with £100, which is like $150, $130 today, and I just started on the street markets. And if everybody turned around and said to me, it's impossible for me to succeed, well, they were right, 100% correct. It was impossible for me to succeed. But, however, I never knew it was impossible. It never occurred to me one moment that I could fail at it. So I just kept doing it. And because it sometimes didn't work out, I thought, oh, that's good. That never worked out. It means I've got more room to do something else. And when something else didn't work out, fabulous. I've got more things to do now. I've got more adventures. And when people try to push me down into the dirt, I rose up like Jack in a box. I said, thank you very much for doing that. Now I've got an incentive. Otherwise, I wouldn't have an incentive. I'm too laid back. But because you want to put me out of business, because you think you want to be competitive with me, great. I'm not going to compete with you. I'm just going to be a leader. I'll show you how to do it by my success. You don't have to do or try and compete with me, because I'm going to compete with you. I never competed with anybody. but I ran one of the most successful textile corporations in England. I've invested in the stock market 55 years, highly successfully. And that's part of my philosophy too. That's in the books, investing, how to gain a good business with good ethics, always being honest, never doing any sly tricks to anybody, be forthright with everybody, say it how it is, not how they want to hear it. And that's how I wrote my books. I've not wrote my books how people want to hear it and how they want to read it. It's how it is. It's how the universe functions. It's how we function as human beings. And if they don't want to read it, oh, well and good. It's none of my business what people want to do, you know?
True. Michael, you are a joy. You're a pure joy to talk to. You're very inspiring. You did inspire me this morning because, you know what, when I started out on doing my show, I was not, formal training for this. And I'm actually a shy person, although people don't believe that. But I used to compare myself. Oh, I don't sound like this person or that person. But you have to be true to yourself. You have to be who you are. Be yourself. It was that saying, why be a carbon copy when you could be an original?
Exactly. And Betsy is Betsy. There's no one else like you on this planet Earth.
Right.
You're an original, molded in God's image, and we all are, and however you want to deem God to be. If you're religious, you'll see it in maybe the way that religion has taught you to be. But in the center of all that is that absolute truth in all religions and in all science. And I kind of build a bridge between science and religion. So I see God as infinite energy, as an intelligent energy. And as this intelligent energy continues to expand, it expands in all massive forms. And if we live to be 10 billion years of age, we could never fathom it. Because it's so incredibly infinite. It's so incredibly eternal. And that force is within us all. We're all a little spark of it. When you see the stars up in the sky, some of those stars might have burnt out billions of years ago, but we can still see them. So there's these images that we see, and are the illusions that we're looking at? Because colour is an illusion. There's no such thing as colour. But the gases on the Earth, somehow or other, filtrate through our system, and the rays that come down turn things into bright colours for us. Our eyes see colour. But colour itself doesn't exist. Time doesn't exist. No such thing as time. It's just a human measurement. And we use it to try and guide ourselves for appointments and for necessities. The ancient Egyptians were the first to start using the seasons for planting the crops and things like that. The ancient Egyptians were the first ones to have a monolithic God. That was 8,000 years ago, before any modern-day religion came along, because one of the leaders, one of the pharaohs, whatever they wanted to call them, sacked all the priests, got rid of all the idols, and said there's just one God, and it's Ra, the sun god. You can see the God, and in one way, it looks like a God. It gives life, it gives heat, and without the sun, there's no earth. When the sun burns out, earth disappears, full stop. So even earth has an innings, and if it's another 4 or 5 billion years, or if it's tomorrow, it doesn't matter, because time doesn't matter. There's no time. We are timeless beings. And until you understand that, you're going to suffer the consequences of all the actions that you're going to be doing. But we are timeless beings in a timeless universe. That is what the entity that we are. But it's an entity. It doesn't contain form. God doesn't contain any form. We don't contain any form. We are invisible. And those invisible forces are always around. That energy can never disappear. So there can be no death. There's no real birth. There's just a human existence for a very, very few moments that we're here. And all we do is live that one moment. We've had this conversation. It's all history now. Can't bring any of that back. You can listen to it. People will be listening to it. But it's already made history. This show has now made history. What's the future going to hold? Who knows? Will we be here tomorrow? Nobody knows. But you've got this moment. You're given this moment. And this moment is the most treasured gift you'll ever be given. If you're the richest man in the world, all that richest man and a woman has got is this one moment. They've got nothing else. Everything else is just borrowed. Doesn't make one heck of a difference what you've got and the assets you've got, all your collections that you've got. Nice to have them. Bit of icing on the cake. Go on your cruises, go on your holiday, have your vacations. But being the same, when you go on your vacation, take your joy with you. When you go in a temple, when you go in a church, bring God inside that church with you. Because you won't find God in that church or temple unless it's inside you. It might feel good, you might recite words up there, you might pray, but God's within you every moment that you're here on earth. That's what makes it so miraculous. That's what makes life on earth worth living. And when you are in that zone, when you understand it, you're complete. You're a complete human being. And you can pass that on to other people like Betsy is doing, and having all these wonderful guests coming on to educate a wonderful audience who are listening to it.
Oh, thank you, Michael. It was such a joy talking to you. Michael, where can people contact you?
My website is called pointoflife.com. pointoflife.com. If people want a recommendation, well, there's well, eat well, think well, live well. The second book I'd recommend would be Cutting Truths, Truths, Cutting Truths. And the third book would be The Joys of Live, Live, Alchemy. And Joys of Live Alchemy changes what we are now into what we will continue to be. See, to be or not to be, that's the question that Shakespeare said 500 years ago. So what will we be? Do you want to be as you are and continue to be as you are and you feel fine with it? Great, continue on. Do you want to eat exactly what you want? Fine, continue on. Do you want to do all the things that you're doing now? Fine, continue on. But if you feel as though there's a better way, do you feel as though there's a better way of accessing new thought, new creativity, new ways of expanding yourself every moment you're here on earth? Then there's an easy way to do that. It's far easier to be doing that on pointoflife.com. I've got a few videos on that website you can listen to. There's a few interviews I've done on Blog Talk Radio, which is Point of Life Blog Talk Radio show. That's in the archives. I did that for about 8 years or so. I also interviewed lots of great speakers and authors that you can always listen to on Blog Talk Radio. But there's nothing like getting a book, curling up with it. But there's one word of warning. If you're reading one of my books, you must only read one essay a day. I write an essay form with intermittent poetry. Only read one essay or one poem a day. If you want to do a meditation, then there's some great meditative poetry in there to do that with, and it takes you over and beyond where you are in any mindset, and it lifts you into another sphere. So all those things are there for you if you want them. But you'll never ever see me advertising. You'll never see me on any PR. I'm on lots of websites throughout the world, but it's only an essay or a poem or a small bio. You'll never see me ever pay one dime for advertising, because that's the vow I made myself before I wrote one word. I would never become a writer had I wanted to make and convince people to buy a book. I can sell millions of books, and I'm a great marketer. That's on the back burner. I would never do that to anybody. I would never convince anybody to do something that they're not ready for or they shouldn't be wanting to do. A person's got to want to make the changes. If they're not ready, then hold back until that moment comes along, and at that appropriate moment, you will ease into it. But don't let ego trouble you, because ego will ease God out of your life. So ease the goodness of God into you by understanding who and what you are and how you can progress in an easy manner. Nothing's hard. If anybody finds writing hard, they're not a writer. No writer from the past will ever say what they wrote was hard. No painter will ever say the paintings that they gave were hard. They might have anguish in their life. They might have passion in their life. And that anguish and passion might have drove them on to do what they did. But there's no blocks. We can only block ourselves. The universe won't block us. We can only block our thoughts by what we've put in beforehand or what other people have instilled in us that try to block you. So if you meet a bully in your life, are you going to let that bully you? Or are you going to stand up to it and say, you know what, you can no longer bully me? And we've all got an inner bully. We've all got an inner terrorist. Don't let it destroy the rest of your life here on earth. Take charge.
That's great advice. That's great advice, Michael. You've been listening to Michael Levy, that is spelled Levy. And thank you, Michael, for coming on and sharing all your insightful wisdom and philosophy. Appreciate it. Folks, all the information about Michael Levy will be in the blog that Jeannie White, who is station manager, Passionate World Talk Radio, writes and produces the show. Thank you, Jeannie. And I want to thank Lillian Caldwell, who's CEO of Passionate World Talk Radio, who makes this all possible. And I want to thank you, the listeners. Thank you for listening, subscribing. And if you haven't already subscribed to Chatting with Betsy, please do. I have phenomenal guests on, and it is free on Spotify, Spreaker, iHeart, YouTube, just to name a few. And please share this show with others to help people. That's what I'm here for. And when you share the show, you are helping me to honor Matt's life, and I deeply appreciate it. So please share the show. We never know how far our ripples go. And really, Chatting with Betsy is about helping others. And that's what I'm about. And if you want to follow me, I am on Facebook, Betsy, Betsy, initial E, Wurzel, Wurzel. And if you are a caregiver or think you're going to be a caregiver, which most of us will be, please join my book. Please join my group, hashtag Kick Alzheimer's Ass Movement. Everyone is welcome to join. And that's what I have to say today, folks. That's today's show. So thank you again for listening. This is, before I forget, I always end my show with this. In a world where you could be anything, folks, please be kind and shine your light bright, because if we all did that, it would be a much kinder, brighter world. And thanks again for listening. This is Betsy Wurzel, your host of Chatting with Betsy on Passionate World Talk Radio. Bye-bye now.